Once, in a kingdom bordered by a thick forest and a river that glittered under the sun, there lived a princess named Adoma. The kingdom was prosperous and peaceful, but behind the high walls of the palace, there was a growing darkness. Adoma herself. From the time she was born, Adoma was spoiled. Her father, the king, adored her so much that he never denied her anything, no matter how unreasonable or cruel her demands became. As she grew older, her cruelty grew with her. Her beauty was undeniable. Smooth, dark skin and sharp eyes that pierced through anyone who dared meet her gaze. But her heart was cold, and her spirit even colder. She enjoyed causing fear, watching as people trembled in her presence. The servants in the palace lived in constant terror, knowing that a single misstep could mean severe punishment, or worse, disappearing altogether. The kingdom whispered about these disappearances, but no one dared speak about it openly. To cross Princess Adoma was to seal one's fate. One day, Adoma saw something that sparked her dark desires. It was a necklace, a simple one, made of deep blue beads that shimmered in the sunlight. The necklace belonged to a young servant named Nia, who had worked quietly in the palace for many years. Unlike the other servants, Nia never drew attention to herself, but the necklace around her neck caught Adoma's eye. Adoma approached her with a sneer. "Where did you get that necklace?" she asked, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. Nia looked up, her eyes wide. "It was my mother's, Your Highness. She gave it to me before she passed." The necklace had been passed down through generations in Nia's family, a symbol of protection, blessed by the river spirits. It was all she had left of her mother. Adoma, however, didn't care about sentimental value. "Give it to me," she demanded. Nia hesitated. "Please, Your Highness," she whispered, trembling. "This necklace means everything to me." But Adoma's lips curled into a cruel smile. "It's mine now," she said coldly. Without another word, Adoma reached out and tore the necklace from Nia's neck, breaking the string. The beads spilled to the ground, but Adoma snatched them up with no remorse. Nia's eyes filled with tears, but she knew better than to protest. She was dragged away by the guards, her sobs echoing through the halls of the palace. No one ever saw her again. From that moment, strange things began to happen. At first, they were small things that were easy to dismiss. A chill in the air, even during the hottest days. The sudden flicker of candle flames, as if a gust of wind had blown through a room with no windows open. Servants began whispering about odd sounds, footsteps echoing down empty hallways, quiet whispers that couldn't be explained. Adoma brushed it off, though something about the necklace felt different. The beads glowed faintly at night, catching the light in a way that made them seem almost alive. But she ignored it. She was the princess. She had taken what she wanted, as always. But then, the nightmares started. Each night, Adoma would dream of Nia. The servant girl appeared at the foot of her bed, her eyes hollow, her clothes torn, her skin pale. She stood there, saying nothing, just watching Adoma with those dark, empty eyes. The first time it happened, Adoma woke up in a cold sweat, her heart racing. By the third night, the dreams felt real. Nia's ghost didn't come alone. Each night, more figures joined her, faces that Adoma recognized. They were the ones who had disappeared, the handmaidens she had punished, the guards who had failed to please her, the villagers who had dared to speak out against her. Their faces were twisted, their eyes full of sorrow and anger. They whispered to her in the dark, their voices filling her ears. "You took what wasn't yours. You made us disappear. You will pay." Adoma would wake up gasping for breath, her heart thudding in her chest. She told herself it was just a nightmare, But the whispers didn't stop. One night, as Adoma lay in bed, she felt a chill crawl down her spine. The air was colder than it had ever been. The faint glow of the necklace beads on her dresser seemed to grow brighter, casting eerie shadows on the walls. And then she heard it. The soft clinking of the beads. At first, she thought she was imagining it, but the sound grew louder, unmistakable. Adoma slowly turned her head, her breath catching in her throat. Standing in the corner of the room was Nia, but she wasn't alone this time. Behind her stood the others, the vanished, the wronged. Their faces were pale, their eyes dark, empty. They stared at her in silence, their expressions full of accusation. Adoma wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Her body felt frozen, her voice caught in her throat. The figures began to move toward her, slow and deliberate. Their whispers filled the room, louder now, echoing in her ears. "You will pay. You will pay." Adoma clutched the necklace around her neck, her hands trembling. She stumbled out of bed, desperate to escape. But the figures followed her, their cold, lifeless eyes fixed on her. In a panic, she ran from her chambers, her bare feet slapping against the cold stone floor of the palace. She rushed down the darkened hallways, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. But no matter how fast she ran, she could still hear the footsteps behind her, the soft, steady steps of the dead. Adoma fled into the palace gardens, where the moon hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground. The air was thick and heavy, and the wind seemed to carry voices, whispers of the river, of the spirits that lived there. She stumbled to the edge of the riverbank, her legs shaking. The water was calm, reflecting the pale moonlight like a mirror. But as she stared at it, she saw them, the figures standing just beneath the surface, their faces twisted, their hands reaching out for her. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," she cried, clutching the necklace in her hands. "Please, I'm sorry." But the spirits did not listen. The water began to ripple, and the figures beneath the surface reached up, their hands breaking through the water, reaching for her. Desperate, Adoma held the necklace out in front of her. "Take it," she screamed. "Take it back. I don't want it anymore." But it was too late. The next morning, when the palace guards went searching for Princess Adoma, they found only her necklace lying at the edge of the riverbank, its blue beads glowing faintly in the morning light. There was no sign of the princess, no footprints leading away from the water, no clue as to where she had gone. The palace was never the same after that. The king, heartbroken by his daughter's disappearance, withdrew from the world, leaving the kingdom to fall into silence. The servants spoke of ghosts that haunted the halls, and late at night, they would hear the soft clink of beads like a warning in the dark. As for Adoma, no one ever saw her again. Some say the river spirits took her as punishment for her cruelty, dragging her down into the depths where the restless dead waited. Others whispered that her spirit still wandered the palace, forever haunted by the souls of those she had wronged. But the truth? Only the river knows. Thanks for diving into this spooky tale with us. If you want more stories that'll keep you up at night, or at least make you double-check the shadows, hit that subscribe button. I promise, no creepy ghosts will follow you home. Unless you don't subscribe. Then, well, who knows?